Will the state of South Dakota going forward force a 10-year-old in that very same situation to have a baby?
You know what I think is incredible, Dana, in this tragic story, because I heard about this last night. What's incredible is that nobody's talking about the pervert, horrible, deranged individual that raped a 10-year-old. And what are we doing about that?
I agree with you.
What are we doing about those individuals that do this to these
that is
children?
an important discussion to have.
You rape children, that's an issue that the Supreme Court has weighed in as well.
Listen, I totally understand that,
but what we can do for that little girl, I think we also need to be addressing those sick individuals that do this to our children.
South Dakota Governor Kristi Noem had a little difficulty answering a question about a 10-year-old rape victim who was impregnated by her rapist and had to travel out of Ohio to Indiana just to get an abortion. Now, Kristi Noem was clearly asked by Dana Bash in that interview, do you think that's right? Do you think it's okay? And she deflected by talking about the pervert who raped her and asked, what are we gonna do about that? I don't know, Kristi. Why don't you talk to the DAs? Why don't you talk to the prosecutors in your state and get that squared away? But how about you answer the question about the fact that a 10-year-old was impregnated by her rapist and had to travel outside of the state. She was lucky enough to have a family that had the resources to travel outside of the state to obtain an abortion in a neighboring state, Indiana, which by the way is working on its own abortion bans. Now, just to give you some more details on that, and then we'll go to the rest of Kristi Noem's despicable comments. The appalling decision to overturn Roe triggered or allowed trigger laws like Ohio's previously unconstitutional 6-week abortion ban to go into effect. That meant a 10-year-old rape victim in that state was denied an abortion because she was pregnant for 3 days past the 6-week ban. Can we just stop for a second? A 10-year-old can die through giving birth. They don't care. They don't care about the insult to injury. They don't care about the fact that, this 10-year-old's life will be absolutely destroyed by being forced. Her body and her life will be absolutely destroyed by having to give birth based on the government, okay? The giant government making a decision on her behalf, forcing her to just be a vessel for what the right wing purports to care about, which is a zygote. But as we know, as soon as that baby is born, they'll abandon that kid, they'll let that kid live and die in poverty, and they won't think about it or care about it for a second, okay? Dr. Caitlin Bernard, an Indianapolis obstetrician-gynecologist, said she had received a call from a colleague doctor in Ohio who treats child abuse victims and asked for help. Indiana's lawmakers have not yet banned or restricted abortion, but don't worry, they are likely to do so when a special session of the state assembly convenes later this month. And Cenk, before I go to you, I just want to go to the final video where Kristi Noem is, being badgered by Dana Bash, and I give her credit for that, and has no choice but to finally answer the question. And this is how disgusting and callous this woman is. Let's watch.
A child, should she have to have that baby?
Every single life is precious. This tragedy is horrific. I can't even imagine. I've never had anybody in my family or myself gone through anything like this. I can't even imagine. But in South Dakota, the law today is that the abortions are illegal except to save the life of the mother.
And you would be okay with that, a 10-year-old girl having to have a baby?
No, I'm never okay with that. In fact, that story will keep me up at night. It absolutely will.
So will you try to change the law to have an exception in a situation like this?
Got a 1-year-old little granddaughter named Miss Addie. I can't even imagine. What I would say is I don't believe a tragic situation should be perpetuated by another tragedy. And so there's more that we've got to do to make sure that we really are living a life that says every life is precious.
Let me be clear, I can't imagine if some young girl in her family ends up getting pregnant as a result of someone raping them. But I can also imagine, and this is absolutely what would happen, Kristi Noem and the rest of her right-wing family members will ensure that that young girl gets that abortion. 100%. I guarantee it. And then she goes, no, of course I'm not okay with that. Of course I'm not okay with a 10-year-old giving birth to her rapist child. Okay, except you are. You are okay with that. That is the issue that you have decided to support. You totally believe in the government getting in between women and their doctors, young girls who are rape victims and their doctors. That is who Kristi Noem is. She's got nothing else to offer to her voters. So she's got to rely on the callous nature of the policies that literally force rape victims as young as 10 to give birth to a rapist child. By the way, and as she supports that, what does she do on the side? Loosen gun laws, loosen gun laws. I mean, endless mass shootings, endless death and destruction in this country as a result of that. She's pro-life, right? Pro-life. The only time they're pro-life is when they use that talking point to control women's bodies. That is it.
Yeah, so I guarantee you that they would fly their family member to Paris. They wouldn't want to get caught driving to another state. And so they're rich Republicans. They're not gonna follow the rules. They never do. We've told you countless stories of Republicans going and getting abortions and then rejoining picket lines in front of the abortion center. And when asked, what, isn't that the most hypocritical thing in the world? They say, oh, no, I wasn't a slut. The rest of them are sluts. God damn it, that's how they think about women. These idiots. So why did she not answer the question directly? She did eventually. Eventually, she finally said, we can't have one tragedy lead to another tragedy. So no, South Dakota would not allow that child to get rid of the zygote inside of her body before it grows into an actual baby that she has to carry for 9 months and then give birth to and then raise the rest of her life, okay? All right, so.
With no help from the state, by the way.
Of course not.
Zero help.
And then Kristi Noem would throw bootstraps at her and go, what are you, poor? Oh, what do you want, more unemployment for your parents? Paid family leave, child tax, we're not gonna give you anything, right? That's what Kristi Noem would say, because she's a monster. Why didn't you just answer the question? Because you're embarrassed. Why are you embarrassed? Because your position is monstrous. And you know that Americans don't agree with you at all, except your crazed lunatic base, who's like, control the women, make the 10-year-old have the rapist baby, make her. That's Republicans, you're voting that way. Don't tell me you're not, because that's exactly how you're voting. So that face I just did and those words I just said, that is you, Republican voters. That's exactly you. So hey, just come out and be open and honest for the first time in your lives. Just say, I just want to control women's bodies. I want the big government, tyrannical government, to snatch their bodies and say, you're not allowed to control your body for 9 months. Because why? She made the mistake of getting raped by an adult. And then they say, oh, QAnon, and we're worried about child molestation and stuff. Then it's the government molesting that young girl for 9 more months, saying, no, you have to keep that inside your body. You people are the sickest people I've ever met. That's why you're embarrassed. That's why you're embarrassed.
But barely.
We're not embarrassed about our position at all, 0%, because we are correct and you are morally inferior to us. Oh, wow, did I just say something you say for the last 40 years? Oh, Democrats, they're not morally right. Oh, they'll do abortions, we're morally better. No, you're morally inferior. You're evil people, evil. Okay, try to be a decent person for a change.
No, it's not in their nature.
Okay.
They don't know how to be decent people. Let's talk about life and death in a state like South Dakota. Because turns out South Dakota, one of the red states that's extreme when it comes to anti-choice legislation, but also pretty extreme when it comes to infant mortality. So we're talking about women who want to keep, they want to keep the pregnancy through term. They want to give birth, and we live in a country with all sorts of pick yourself up by the bootstraps garbage that usually ends in death for a lot of people, including newborns. So if you look at the infant mortality rate, the states with the highest infant mortality rate tend to be red states. In South Dakota, it's 6.9 infant deaths per 1,000 live births. Let's take a look at where South Dakota fares. These are the top states with the highest infant mortality rates. So as we've talked about before, Mississippi comes in at number 1, then you've got Louisiana, West Virginia, Arkansas, Alabama, South Dakota. and then North Carolina. You guys noticing a trend there? Then you look at the states with the lowest infant mortality rates. Again, these are live births, right? That end in the baby dying, doesn't survive. Vermont has the lowest with 0, which is kind of miraculous. Then you've got California, Massachusetts, New York, New Jersey. It's interesting how the states with the lowest infant mortality rates tend to be states that not only have better laws in regard to reproductive rights, but more importantly, have stronger programs, a stronger social safety net to help support women, to help support families, to help support children, to help support people in the state living in poverty. You don't get any of that in a state like South Dakota. You don't, because they don't care about lives at all. They don't care about the high rate of infant mortality in a state like South Dakota. It's all about controlling people's bodies. And let me just remind you for the billionth time that while Kristi Noem would have a 10-year-old rape victim give birth to a rapist baby and doesn't see that as a problem, doesn't see it as something that's terrible to her body, doesn't see it as invasive, they can't be bothered to put a piece of cloth over their faces during a contagious pandemic. That was invasive. That was a violation of their bodily autonomy, right? No, they're full of crap. They don't care about human lives. They will avoid doing the bare minimum, knowing full well that doing the bare minimum, like wearing a mask, will stop the spread of a highly contagious and lethal virus. So they don't care. They just don't care.
Take those two facts, combine them, and you see who's actually pro-life and who's not. In the red states, several 100,000 more people died from coronavirus than in the blue states. Why? Oh, mask is anti-freedom. Vaccines are anti-freedom, right? So we'll just have a couple 100,000 of our neighbors die because we don't care about their life at all. Oh, okay, taking care of kids as they're being born? Who cares? Not gonna do it. We're red states. We don't care about life at all.
At all.
So all the red states are the least pro-life. It's just a fact. It's statistically a fact. And the blue states are the most pro-life. Actual life. Those are stone cold facts. Because for Republicans, it doesn't have anything to do with life. Which brings me into my final point. Adam Kinzinger said, when I was colleagues with Kristi Noem, she wasn't like this at all. It's so sad to see her trying to become Trump's running mate, and that's why she's doing this. I don't care why she's doing it. She's a monster. Does that help that she's doing it to appeal to the Republican voters who are also monsters, so that they could all work together to help Donald Trump get elected? An even bigger monster. No. Don't give the fact that she's a lying scum politician as an excuse for her monstrous behavior. It doesn't make it better, it makes it worse. None of you are pro-life. All you believe in is oppression.